In this tutorial we're going to take a look at importing bank statements. Now what does this mean? In RentHQ there are three different ways to enter transactions. You can either manually enter them through the cash book screen, or you can use automatic transactions to automatically generate transactions for us, or we can import a bank statement. Importing a bank statement is a really fast and accurate way of entering transactions, and is ideally suited for people that enter transactions from the past. Some people enter transactions on a daily basis, in which case you'd probably do that manually. But if you want to enter transactions for the last month or the last week, then importing bank statements is a much quicker and much more accurate way of doing it. So I highly recommend it. Now to do this, you need to be able to get a copy of your bank statement from your bank's website. Now most banks now provide this function where you can go to their website and you can download a copy of all your transactions. Now we need to get it in one of two formats, either the OFX file format, which is sometimes known as the MS Money file format, or in the QIF file format. Now if you get the option, you should always use OFX. OFX has additional information in there which we can use to check for duplicate transactions, to make sure we don't start entering transactions more than once. So I've gone to my bank already and I've downloaded a transaction file, and it's sitting on my computer's hard drive. Now I want to import it. So I go to transactions and I choose import statement. I select the bank account that it belongs to, so I'm going to select that bank account, and I select the file that I've already previously downloaded. So I have this file here. As you can see, it's got a .ofx on the end. It's an OFX file, so I'm going to import that one. What this does is it goes through looking at all the transactions and lists them out on the screen here for me. We can see in this instance it looks like there's 8 transactions. At the moment all the transactions are shown in the red colour. The red colour means that there's something wrong with it. We can't import the transaction the way it is. What we need to do is we need to classify the transactions. So if we see here, this message here tells us why it can't be imported. It says property selection required. So I can select the property here. So I'm going to select the property. Now it says transaction group required, which is over here. So I'm going to say this transaction, I've looked at it, I know about this one is rent. And now this transaction is ready to import. It says it there and it's now in a white colour. Once the transaction is white, we know it will be imported. And it actually says down the bottom here, we now have 1 valid transaction and 7 incomplete transactions. Now I could go through all these transactions entering in the property and transaction group. It wouldn't take too long, but there's a quicker way of doing it. We can use the add rule button. We notice here that under notes it's got this here, and if we look further down we've got another one which is identical. So this is also rent, same amount, it came from the same tenant. So I'm going to add a rule. We should give this rule a name, rent from Mr. Smith. This here is what's shown, is what comes through on my bank statement. So I can classify this transaction. I'm going to say that this is from this property, the transaction group is rent, and the tenant is that tenant there. And if I want to, I can actually override what's written in the notes if I want to blank it out or put something different in there. But I won't bother, I'm just going to save that, and that saves that rule over there. Now when I close this list, it asks me, do I now want to reapply the rules that I have changed? And I'm going to say yes to that. You'll now notice that both of these transactions are now white. This transaction down here is also white because it's applied that rule. Now I can create multiple rules, because if we take a look, this one here, again this transaction exists here, and there's actually another one down here for the same tenant. So I'm going to add a rule to this one. Just give it a name. I'm going to say it's from this property, it's rent again from this tenant. So again, setting up a second rule, close that, reapply the rules, and we can now see that most of our transactions are now going to the white colour, which is good. Now these rules stick. If I was to cancel this and I was to import a bank statement again, starting all over again, select, in this case, the same file, but it could be a different file, you'll see the rules again are being applied. So once we've set up the rules once, it'll keep on being applied every time we import a bank statement. So there's a couple of transactions left. I can see this one here looks like a repair, so I'm going to select the property that belongs to. I'm going to say it's repairs, and that one's now white. Now if I want to, I can leave some transactions in red if I want to manually handle those. If I now commit this, it says there's 2 incomplete transactions and 6 valid transactions. I'll commit these transactions. It's automatically taken me to the cash book and filled in and showed me all those transactions that I've just now imported. So as you can see, this is a very quick way of entering transactions. I could have manually entered all these transactions, but there's a much higher chance of getting errors. If I was to go back and import that bank statement, exact same bank statement again, we can see these transactions here are yellow because it says the transaction already exists. So it's not going to import those transactions again. But what I can do is import the ones that I skipped the first time. Let's see, what's this? Let's say this is miscellaneous income, and this one here looks like it's an insurance payment. So if I press commit now, it'll save those 2 transactions only, and there's the 2 transactions. So as you can see, a very quick way of entering transactions, and it's a very accurate way because there's no manual entry. I didn't actually type anything. All I did was select some items from a list to select the property and the tenant and what type of transaction it is. And once we set up the rules, it gets a very fast way of entering transactions.